Hello, my name is Jia Xiaohan from CP3406. Today I'm going to talk about two apps I made, Calculator and Memory Game. The purpose of my calculator is to make it easy for people to do simple calculations. The purpose of making memory games is for people to relax themselves and exercise their memory through games when they are tired. This Java code represents the activity in the Android application. Specifically, it is the main activity of the basic calculator application. The function of the analysis code is as follows. Class declaration declares the main activity class that extends app combat activity. The base class for activities that use the support library action bar functionality. Member variable. The display variable is declared, which is an added text that will be used for display and input calculations. OnCreate method. This method is called when the activity is first created. Here, the activity's layout is set using setContent view, and the display variable is initialized using the view ID. The soft keyboard is set to not appear when the add text get focus, and a click listener is set on the add text to clear its text when clicked. Update text method. This method is used to add a new character at the current cursor position in edit text. Button methods. Every button in the character has a method. These methods use update text method to add specific characters to the added text. The plus minus btn method toggles the signs of the current number, and the parentheses btn method adds a new parentheses, making sure to balance them. The equals btn method uses the max parser to evaluate the result of the expression in the added text. Error handling. When the equal button is pressed, if the added text is empty or the expression is invalid, a toast message will be displayed to the user. This is the XML layout file for the Android calculator application. It consists of a constraint layout as a root view group, an edit text to display the input, a button to backspace, and a table layout containing the calculator button row. Constraint layout. This is a more flexible layout manager that enables complex responsive layouts without nested view groups. In this case, it acts as a root layout of the activity. You also set a background drawable for it. Edit text. This is where user input is displayed. It is styled with a wide text color, 45 sp text size, and ignores autofill hints. The input type is set to none, so the keyboard doesn't pop up when tapped. Button. This is a backspace button. It uses a custom drawable as a background and calls a method called backspace btn when clicked. Table layout. This is a layout that organizes its children, button views, into rows and columns. Each row is a table row and it contains many buttons. Each button represents a calculator function or number. Each button in table layout has an onClick method which should be defined in activity code. This method will be called when the button is clicked, and they should handle the functionality of the calculator. Using a lot of string resources for your button text. Make sure these strings are defined in your string's XML resource file. This XML file is the Android manifest XML for my Android application. A manifest file provides the Android system with the basic information about your application that the system must have in order to run any of your application's code. Permissions and features. The app requires two permissions from the user. Wake lock. This allows the application to prevent the device from going to sleep. Vibrate. This allows the app to control the device's vibrator. Additionally, this application states that it uses the accelerometer sensor on the device. Application element. This element contains all the components of the application such as activities, services, broadcast receivers, and content providers. Additionally, it defines the metadata about the application such as icons, themes, text, etc. Allow backup. This attribute is set to true, allowing users to backup and restore application data. Data extraction rules and full backup content. These attributes point to XML files that specifically the data and to backup to and exit. Icon. This attribute points to the icon representing the application on the device's home screen. Label. This attribute points to be a string resources providing the name of the application. Support RTL. This property is set to true, which means that application can handle right to left languages. Activities. The manifest declare 4 activities. The Android named attribute contains the name of the class implementing the activity. The Android export attribute is set to true, which means that older applications can start this activity. The start page activity has an intent filter that includes the main action and the launcher class. This means it is the entry point of the application. When user tap on application icon, this activity will open. My main activity.java is the part of an Android memory game application that also integrates an accelerometer sensor for navigation purpose. Variable into initialization. I initialize variables for the game such as game state, array of cars, images of cars, scores, etc. On create method. In this method, I set up the layout of the activity, register the accelerometer sensor, and set up the initial game layout. This includes assigning labels to my image views, shifting the cars array, setting the initial text color, and setting click listeners for my card image views. Front of card resources method. Here, I assign the drivable resources to the image variable I declared earlier. Do stuff method. This method handles what happens when the card is clicked. It checks which card was clicked and displays the corresponding image. It also handles the logic to determine if a match was found. Calculate method. This method is called after 2 cards are selected. It checks if 2 cards match, and if so, it increases the current player's score and hides the matching card. If the cards don't match, it will flip the cards over and it will be the other player's turn. Check end method. This method checks if all cards are matched and the game is over. If the game is over, it navigates to thanks activity. On sensor changed method. Here, the gyroscope will monitor the accelerometer sensor. If the device is shaken, it will navigate the users back to the start page activity. On the currently changed method. This method is required as part of the sensor event listener interface, but is not used in this code. This Android code is written in Java and sets up an activity called rank activity. An activity in Android is a single screen that users can interact with and is one of the most important building blocks of the Android application. This particular activity displays a list of a player named retrieved from the database, each list as a 6-point winner. Import statement. These lines of the code import libraries and classes required by the activity. Class definition. The rank activity class extends app compact activity, which is the base class for activities that use the support library action bar functionality. This includes new features on older versions of Android. Instance variables. This class has 3 instance variables: a list view to display a list of player names, a button to close activities, and a game database helper object to interact with the database. OnCreate method. This is a lifecycle method that calls when an activity is first created. In this method, set up an activity's layout, initialize instance variables, retrieve the list of the player names from the database, create a new rank adapter and set it as a list view adapter, and set up the click listener for the close button. Rank adapter class. This is an inner class that extends array adapter. It is used to control how the items in the list view are displayed. Each item in the list extends from the simple list item 1 layout, with the text set to the player's name and the string "You are a 6-point winner." This Java code defines a helper class for managing SQLite databases in Android applications. This class is called Game Database Helper, and it extends SQLite Open Helper, which is a helper class in Android that manages database creation and versioning constants. The database name, version, table name, and column name are defined as a constant. OnCreate method. This is a lifecycle method that calls when the database is created for the first time. It creates a new table called players with columns ID and a name. The ID columns is an integer, which is an auto-incrementing primary key, and the name column is a text field that cannot be empty. OnUpgrade method. This method is called when the database needs to be upgraded. It deletes the existing players table, then calls onCreate to create a new table. AddPlayer method. This method takes a player name as a parameter and inserts it into the players table. GetAllPlayerNames method. This method retrieves all player names from the users table and returns them as a list of strings. It uses a CoUser object to iterate through the results set row by row, adding each player's name to a list. This class is used in the rank activity class I showed earlier to retrieve the list of the player names from the database. This is the start page class of my Android application. It extends app-comeback activity, making it a subclass of activity and acting as a UI controller in an Android application. Declaration of the button. I declare 4 button variables at the class level: start BTN, rank BTN, quit BTN, and share BTN. This will be used to represent the different buttons in the start page activity. OnCreate method. This is the lifecycle method that Android calls when the activity is created. Internally, I first set the activity's layout using setContentView, which tells Android to use activity.xml as the layout for this activity. Button initialization. I use findView by ID to initialize the previously declared button variable with the actual button object in the layout. Assign the startBTN variable to the button with the ID startBTN in the XML layout. OnClick Listener setup. I set OnClick Listener for each button. OnClick Listener is an interface in Android used to define action to be performed when click event is triggered. Start button. When clicked, it starts a main activity with the Internet. Internet is a messaging object that I use to request an action from another application component. Rank button. When clicked, it starts a rank activity also using the Internet. Share button. When clicked, it starts an activity to share the text content. The text shared is on social media. It is sent to any application on device that accepts the plain text data. Quit button. When clicked, it calls the finish method, which closes this activity and returns to the previous activity in the stack, if any. This is the thanks activity class of my Android application. Like the start page class, it also extends app comeback activity, which is a subclass of activity used as an AI controller. Declaration of variable. 3 variables are declared as a class level. Player name of the type edit text, and it used to accept the player's name entered by the user. BTN submit name button type used to submit the player's name. Game database helper of the type game database helper that may be used to interact with the database. OnCreate method. This method is called when the activity is created. It set up the activity as follows. setContentView sets the activity's layout using activity.thanks XML. Game database helper is initialized as a new instance of the game database helper, passing the code the activity contains in the constructor. player's name and the BTN submit name are initialized with the findView by ID, which links these objects to their corresponding objects in the XML layout. Create a back BTN button and set an on-click listener when it is activated, and start the start page activity and remove all the activity forms the backstack. BTN submit name sets up an on-click listener which, when activated, retrieves the text from the player name, trims it to remove leading training space, and adds it to the database if it's not empty. It also displays a message based on whether the name was added successfully. OnDestroy method. This method is called by the system when the activity is destroyed. Finally, I want to tell you that I also designed the game in two ways. You can control it through the touch screen or you can connect the mouse and click on it. Okay, so those are the functions of the app. During the whole production process, I encountered the problem that I could not write gyroscope code. I overcame the difficulty by asking the teacher and looking up information online. But what I didn't have was a sensitive gyroscope, which only works when the phone is titled more than 25 degrees horizontally. That's all for me. Thank you.